Hello, and welcome back. You are watching the Zenith Glow Astrology channel. My name is Christina, and I am an astrologer. How are we doing, everybody? How is everyone doing with all of these crazy energies that are afoot at the moment? It is really, really intense, and we're going to talk about some more of those energies that are forthcoming in the next week. That's right, this video is all about the dun 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 annular solar eclipse in Aquarius. We've been talking about this, yammering about this for weeks now, months even, and the time is finally upon us. So, that is what this video is all about. So, buckle up, get comfortable, grab your popcorn. Are we doing okay? Is the sound all right? Microphone check 1, 2. What is this? Okay, sorry. It's a Tribe Called Quest for you there. Yeah, before we get into it, please, if you would like this video, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell. Doing so supports my work, and I greatly appreciate your support. Thank you so much for being here. All right, solar eclipse in Aquarius. Let's talk about it. You guys, we've been building up to this. I'm so excited. I don't know. Have we been overhyping it? Honestly, I don't think that we have. I don't think that we have. There's so much going on right now. It's not just the eclipse. That's the thing. I mean, we're going to talk about the eclipse, but keep in mind that this is not just something that is occurring in isolation. There's like a cacophony of astrological transits and alignments that are happening simultaneous to the eclipse and preceding the eclipse and following the eclipse. It's just bonkers right now, you guys, but it's really, really exciting. I don't know about you, but the energy is, I mean, it's intense. And on the one hand, it can affect us in all kinds of ways. So if you've been feeling this physically or emotionally, if you've been feeling kind of wired or stressed out, if you seem like you're off your rocker like I do, then you might want to ground yourself. You might want to practice some self-care, whatever that means to you. Get into your body a little bit more because this stuff is definitely taking us higher in our consciousness, and that's a good thing, but it can also be really, really intense. So just wanted to make that little PSA for y'all there. But on the other hand, we've been in this wood snake energy for so long, just these cycles of shedding and releasing and doing this inner shadow work and revisiting the past, and oh my gosh, dredging up like the family karma and the old psychic wounds that we've been carrying, and just the heaviness, right? There's stuff going on in the world. It's heavy, it's heavy, it's heavy, right? And there's just been this feeling of like, we're not really moving, which of course is not true, right? We're doing a lot of internal movement. There's a lot going on below the surface, but it's like when you're looking outside of yourself, it kind of feels like things have been a little bit stuck or stagnant, or there's been like this push-pull kind of energy. We're emerging from that now, and that's why this is exciting. I find it exciting. I can feel the energy changing, and yeah, maybe a little bit tense, maybe a little bit scary, not knowing exactly what is on the other side, but it's also really, really thrilling to finally be shifting out of that, kind of stuck, sticky energy. So whatever comes next, take a breath and just surrender. We've learned how to surrender through this year of the snake, right? It's all been about surrendering and surrendering and surrendering. So we are fully practiced. We are fully primed for this. Whatever comes next, you are absolutely ready. You've done the work and you are ready to embrace what is coming in the future. So, all right, let's talk about the details of this eclipse. Before I do, does everyone want to say hi to Jazzy? He is behind me. Hey, Jazzy. He just dropped his bone. I guess I startled him. Okay. Aoife is in the room. Yes, she is looking at me and she is smiling. All right. Let's talk about this eclipse. So, This eclipse is happening on February 17th. It will become precise at 7:13 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is the same as 12:13 Universal Time. That would be p.m. Universal Time. And it's going to be occurring at 28 degrees 56 minutes of Aquarius, which is pretty much the anaretic degree. Now, of course, if you want to dive into the numerology, everything has meaning, right? If you want to go into those deep layers and all the little nitty gritty. But this is absolutely close enough to 29 degrees that we could call it 29 degrees. It is the anaretic degree. Again, energy is fluid. It's not, these strong boundaries between things. At the same time, though, 56 minutes reduces to 11. So we have 28, 11. 2 plus 8 is 10, which is 1. So 111. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And it does go. I did do a tarot reading. We're going to talk about that. But yeah, there is very strong initiatory energy going into this eclipse. Initiation. And I've been talking about this for weeks now already. And here it is showing up in the numerology. So this is an annular solar eclipse, okay? So it's a new moon annular solar eclipse. New moons always coincide with solar eclipses, just so you know. And eclipses in general bring huge change and transformation. They are ways that we kind of recalibrate, sort of reset the trajectory. It brings shifts and changes that are needed for us so that we can stay in alignment with our soul's evolutionary purpose. So often with eclipses, they come in cycles. It's not just one singular eclipse. There's always going to be at least a pair of eclipses. And that is the case with this eclipse season. We start with this solar eclipse in Aquarius on the 17th of February. And it will be followed by a total lunar eclipse in Virgo on March 3rd. So that is our eclipse pairing for the season. And, lunar eclipses always coincide with full moons. This is just a little bit of eclipse review for you if you're looking to be reminded about this information. So we, sometimes it's seen as like solar eclipses herald in new beginnings and lunar eclipses bring culmination and endings. And it can be viewed that way. But of course, whether you are opening a door or closing a door or which side of the door you're standing on, it is two sides of a coin, right? So with one comes the other. They are interconnected. And so again, looking at this as an entire event, we are talking about beginnings and endings, and it's all part of that energy of transformation. And again, the transformation is there to get you into higher alignment with your purpose. So we have a solar eclipse. Now, this is an annular eclipse, also known as a ring of fire eclipse. All right. So a ring of fire eclipse is basically when the moon is far enough away from the Earth in its orbit that when it passes between the Earth and the sun, it's not close enough to the Earth from our perspective to totally block out the sun, which would be a total solar eclipse, right? So it's like, I don't know, I guess imagine if you're holding like a plate in front of your face and you're looking up at the sun. Don't do this, at least not without special eye protection. But if you were to hold up a plate in front of your face and look up at the sun, if you hold the plate farther away from your face, it's not going to totally block out the sun. You're going to get that ring of light that forms around the plate. But if you were to bring it closer to your face, then you could potentially block out all the light of the sun. Same idea, except instead of a plate, we've got the moon, right? And so the moon is farther away from the Earth, so it's not able to totally block out the light of the sun. And so what happens is we get like a ring of light that forms around the moon during the eclipse, and thus it is known as a ring of fire. And so this eclipse, this particular type of eclipse, is associated with spiritual initiation because we have this merging of the unconscious and the conscious, symbolized by that moon, the unconscious being eclipsed. Well, the moon is supposed to be eclipsing the sun, right? But it's not able to. The sun is still engulfing the moon. And so we have the light that is emerging amidst the shadow. And so we have this merging together of conscious and unconscious. The unconscious is being brought up into the light. All right, that is the shadow. And we've done a lot of this work already with Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, or just Jupiter in Cancer in general. But this is something that I talked about in my Jupiter retrograde video. We have the shadow coming up into awareness. It's being expanded for us. It already has been. And part of the shadow is our gifts, our abilities, the parts of ourselves that are yet to be discovered, right? The things that we just haven't come into conscious awareness of yet. Well, this solar eclipse is absolutely initiating us into that conscious awareness of anything that remains below the surface that we haven't yet acknowledged. And on top of that, it's not just bringing it into our awareness, we are being challenged to do something with it, to take that stuff, those gifts, that treasure that we discover within, and to carry it forward into a higher purpose, into a higher calling. Okay. And this goes into all the other astrology, the alignments that are happening at this time as well. It's huge, folks. This is a huge event. And again, it correlates with the year of the fire horse. Sorry, I can't even talk about it. I'm stunned. No, it correlates with the year of the fire horse, which we enter a new year astrologically in Chinese astrology the same day that we have this annular solar eclipse in Aquarius. Okay. Two events happening at once, and I've been talking about this in other videos, but anytime you start something new in astrology, it can be anything, whether you're giving birth to a human or whether you are starting a business or getting married, etc., etc. Anytime you have something new started, whatever the alignments are for that day that the thing has begun, it becomes the imprint, the energetic imprint that marks that event, that thing, right, as you carry it forward in time. And so with this lunar new year, the year of the fire horse, happening the same time that we have this annular solar eclipse, that energy and all the other planets that are in alignment at that time, as if you were to take a photograph of that thing at that time, that represents the energetic imprint that we are going to carry forward with us throughout the rest of the year until we circle back around next year and we begin the year of the fire goat next February. So everything I'm about to talk about now represents energy that will be a theme that gets carried forward throughout the next year of our lives. All right. So just keep that in mind as we dive into all of this. All right. Are we ready? There's a lot of energy right now. This eclipse is ruled by Uranus since it is in the sign of Aquarius. Uranus went direct recently, so there's strong Uranian energy happening right now. I am very affected by Uranus. You may have noticed if you've watched my past videos, Uranus is one of my chart rulers. And so I do tend to get a little zippy whenever I do these videos talking about Uranus and that kind of thing. I also want to mention before I dive into the astrology that we have had some very, very intense, there's that word again, solar activity in the last week and still right now, today, going on. Just crazy, massive solar flares, geomagnetic storms. I totally don't understand this stuff on a technical level. I have like a very kindergarten understanding of it. If you want to learn more about this kind of stuff, I recommend checking out Stefan Burns here on YouTube, checking out his work because he is a geophysicist and a scientist and an expert, and he can explain things very, very well. I was watching a couple of his videos this morning, and there's some really interesting stuff going on. But yeah, just we are like basically at the tippy top peak of our solar maximum period, just about to enter the descent of that maximum, so heading back towards the minimum period. And so we're getting like this precipitation of solar activity at this time, which means that we're getting more of those solar flares, and then that affects the electrical field of the earth. It affects the Schumann resonance, and then the Schumann resonance affects our consciousness. It is linked together or overlapping human consciousness because they are occurring at the same frequency. So whenever we have these solar flares and all of these events, it's really interesting because even from like a basic level, you can think of it as the sun represents consciousness, right? Even in astrology, it has to do with our consciousness. Well, when we have literal physical solar flares happening astronomically, it affects our consciousness as a collective and individually. So we get shifts, we get upgrades, we get downloads, we get all kinds of things happening that affect us on a spiritual level, on a consciousness level. All those things are happening right now as we are getting ready to head into this eclipse. I really do think that we are being like prepped for the energies because this is huge energy. I don't want to overhype it, but it is really big energy. There's big changes that are happening with this eclipse, and it just marks a distinct period that we are entering, okay? And yeah, and it's going to link into year 2027 as well. More on that another time, but just so you know, big energy and big solar flares and big transits and big, big, big. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at a chart. Let's see here. Hello, Jazzy. You working on your bone, buddy? He's so happy. I think everyone could do well to follow Jazzy's example, just so you know. Just get a bag of snacks and lay on your pillow. Just chew and be happy. Let's all let's all do that. We might need to do that with all the energies that are going on right now. Okay. So here we have a chart. Now, I want to point out that I pretty much left off the asteroid goddesses. I know, because it was really crowded and I'm actually not going to talk about them too much. I did leave Mary Magdalena on there, which she's at 25 degrees of Leo. But I do want to mention before I even get into all the other nuances of things that all of the goddess asteroids, Ceres, Juno, Pallas, Vesta, they are all making prominent aspects during this eclipse. So everything is activated at this time. All of those goddess asteroids are making aspects to personal planets or in very significant ways. Okay. Now, I would normally talk about those things, but there's just so much else to focus on that I think is kind of taking front and center stage. So maybe at some point I'll do some short videos or something talking about the influence of the goddesses at this time. But for today's purpose, because I already have a tendency to yammer on, we're going to try to simplify things and we're just going to focus on the primary players here. Okay, so we have our solar eclipse, which is the sun and moon, new moon configuration overlapping in the sign of Aquarius at 28 degrees 56 minutes of Aquarius, first and foremost. And then we have several other significant aspects going on. So, one of the main things that we're going to talk about today, and this also came out in the tarot reading, I mentioned Uranus. So, Uranus at 27 degrees of Taurus, and I think it's 2732. Okay, yeah, so about halfway through that degree. It is squaring the eclipse. Okay, now that in and of itself, like we could just talk about that. We could leave everything off the table and just talk about that. I'm not going to do that, but I want to make you aware that out of all the things that are happening with this event, that's going to be the highlight of it all. Okay. And again, that came through my tarot reading as well, which we will look at in a minute here. So this is significant not just because Uranus has a very strong energy, but because Uranus rules the eclipse, because it is the ruler of Aquarius, right? So its energy is already very prominent during this event because it's the ruler of the eclipse. But then you also factor in the piece that Uranus recently went direct, that Uranus is finishing up its time in Taurus. It's not going to return to this sign for a really long time and for like another 84 years or so. So it's wrapping up the lessons of Taurus. And it is moving very close to the anaretic degree of Taurus. And so we are getting like a climax of that energy at this time. And then it's ruling the eclipse, and then it's squaring the eclipse. And squares bring a lot of tension. They're very challenging energy. That's a 90-degree angle. Basically, the two energies, the planets involved, are kind of in a gridlock and they disagree with each other. There's some friction. Doesn't mean that you can't work it out. It just means that it takes more conscious effort to find harmony and to synthesize these energies. And that's what we're going to be dealing with. So don't be surprised if you experience around the eclipse window. Now, that could be any time between now and even post eclipse, but especially in the 3-day window surrounding the eclipse. Don't be surprised. I mean, you're gonna be surprised, but don't be surprised if there's surprises, all right? Because Uranus brings in sudden changes, shocks, surprises, news, upsets, it's upheaval, it's that kind of quick, sudden, surprising sort of energy. I've already seen this manifesting in the 3D world, in my personal life in various ways. And yeah, it's kind of fun to watch. Nothing bad has happened. I've just been watching, and as an astrologer, this is just how I live my life. I watch the people around me and the things that they're going through, and then they tell me about things that happen to them, and I'm like, mm-hmm. Like, yes. And my brain is working out like, well, Uranus just went direct or whatever. That's the kind of thing that's going to happen around this eclipse. But let's also talk about what these energies mean. Okay, so Uranus has been transiting through Taurus, right? Uranus is the planet of truth, freedom, and deconditioning outdated perceptions, mindsets, value systems, ways of doing and being. Okay. It is the rule breaker, the rebel, the earth shaker that comes in and breaks up all the structures and the crystallizations that Saturn creates for us. The things that we establish individually and as a society that create safety, structure, order, control, those types of things. Those things are necessary for a period of time because we need to have a sense of stability. But after a while, we start to get uncomfortable with those crystallizations because we're not able to keep growing, right? We have to keep growing. We have to keep evolving. And so Uranus represents this principle of evolution that is necessary. And it operates by coming in and just blasting the hell out of those old structures, not giving a damn about who is upset and how it happens. It just cares about shaking things up so that we have room to grow. Think about like tilling the land, tilling the soil, right? You're kind of like uprooting things and disrupting the surface of things so things are not like smooth and patted down anymore. You've got this like breaking up, and things sort of feel like a little bit shaky and unfamiliar, you could say. That is the energy of Uranus. Uranus will come in and just zap you. It's associated with electricity, by the way, and lightning. And it will bring huge dramatic shifts at lightning speed, and it comes very unexpectedly. It can be very shocking at times, okay? Don't let this frighten you. The point of this is that Uranus has been transiting through the sign of Taurus, and Taurus, while it does govern, physical resources that we need for survival, it can relate to money, and the things that we own and possess. At a deeper level, Taurus relates to our values and our self-worth, okay? Because on an energetic level, but whatever our values and our self-worth are, whatever the quality of energy that is, that becomes manifest and reflected outwardly in the material, tangible realm, okay? So the way that you earn money, the things that you own, how you attract what you need to survive is going to be in direct proportion or in alignment to whatever quality of energy you hold within in your self-perception, your self-worth, and your values. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And so, because Uranus is all about deconditioning what no longer serves us and wants us to break free into a greater truth, and into expansion so that we can keep growing, it means that these past years that Uranus has been transiting through Taurus, it has been deconditioning our perceptions around these themes. So, not just what we value and how we handle money and how we treat our survival needs, but going even deeper. How do we value ourselves? How do we perceive ourselves? How do we uphold our self worth? We have been redefining what these things mean to us. And we are now at the very end, the tail end of Uranus's transit through this sign. And so it's like we are getting some final lessons coming up in this area of life. And we are also having big changes result from all the work that we've been doing these past years. Okay. So it's like deep inner work getting us to really recognize our self-worth and to get to know ourselves on a whole new level. And now all the work that we've been doing is starting to blossom outward into the material tangible realm, which goes along with the themes of the fire horse that I've talked about. And I did a video on that, and you can check that out if you want to. But that goes along with this eclipse and the initiation process that we are undergoing and everything that is moving forward in this year. The inner realm is now becoming outwardly tangible through action and through changes in our environment, in our lives, in through opportunities and choices that we are making. Okay. So that energy is directly influencing this eclipse. They are squaring each other. Now, the eclipse itself is in the sign of Aquarius, also at the anaretic degree of Aquarius. Okay. So, again, this energy of initiation, right? Going through a portal, activating self mastery. And Aquarius, being ruled by Uranus, it is all about freedom and innovation and truth and individuality and authenticity. So, this is a whole brand new beginning that is initiating us into our unique individual path, our spiritual purpose, our personal alignment that leads us to more freedom and greater truth and authenticity. But it's being squared by Uranus in Taurus because Uranus is saying, well, you need to take all of those ideas that you have, and there are a lot of ideas. And again, the tarot reading, it showed up there. You need to take all the ideas that you have for yourself and you need to ground them into physical reality. Okay, you need to marry the two elements, the air and the earth. How are you going to take your ideas and how are you going to create something tangible with them? Or the opposite, how are you going to take your tangible values, the things that you own, the way that you're living your life, the grounded action that you're taking in your life, and how are you going to marry that to this new sense of self and to what feels true and right and free to you? What allows you to be more yourself? So, there could be a little bit of conflicting energy around these themes because they are kind of juxtaposed. But again, it doesn't mean that we can't harmonize these energies. It's just that it takes a little bit more conscious effort to do so. But just know, whenever we have squares in astrology and the other dynamic aspects, they absolutely, unequivocally precipitate the most growth and transformation. So, in the end, it is a very beautiful thing. So, that is the first thing that's going on with this eclipse. Uranus squaring the eclipse, that's going to be the big highlight of the event. And that's a theme that we are going to carry with us throughout the rest of this lunar year in Chinese astrology, the year of the fire horse. But there's more. There's other things going on. I do want to mention a few other alignments happening on this day. One very significant thing that's going on is we have Venus at 8 degrees of Pisces, and she is exactly conjunct the North Node in Pisces. Now, I just did a little video recently on all of the personal planets making conjunctions to the North Node over the next month. So if you want to check that out, It's there under my shorts, or if you follow me on TikTok or Instagram, it's there. I think I labeled it something like understanding your spiritual purpose, which is what that is, because all of the personal planets have to do with conscious levels of awareness that we hold, right? The outer planets operate on the unconscious level, okay? And then the social planets, Saturn and Jupiter, are how we relate to society. But the personal planets are exactly that. They are personal to us, and we hold a conscious awareness of their energies. And so, as all of these planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, come into conjunction with the North Node, we are understanding through their individual functions, okay? Each planet has its own function, what that spiritual purpose and destiny means to us, to each of us, okay? Because the North Node in Pisces is helping to align us with our spiritual path, with where we are being called and how we are meant to evolve or continue evolving if we are to continue advancing spiritually, right? Keep moving forward on the spiritual path. And so, again, this is an energetic imprint, a blueprint, a snapshot that is going with us through the rest of this year. So, having Venus conjunct the North Node is a very special thing. On the one hand, it means that our spiritual purpose and our inner calling, our soul's calling, is landing in the heart space. Okay, on this day of the eclipse, that spiritual purpose is landing in the heart space via divine feminine energy. Venus this year, and I've mentioned this in other videos, holds a very special destiny or mission this year. She is coming into prominence and she represents the rise of the divine feminine this year. Now, men, I am talking to you too, because the divine feminine also exists as an energy, a polarity within you. And for all of us, for a very long time, both masculine and feminine have been distorted and they have been imbalanced. And this is a year when we are coming into greater balance with those energies, that inner marriage, that Hieros Gamos. And it partly starts with the rise of the divine feminine. So, on the one hand, we're going to have that come into prominence within us and help us to merge and to unite with our spiritual purpose at that deep, felt, embodied psychic level, which is the feminine. On the other hand, we're also going to see a rise in female leadership this year, just as as a physical manifestation of this energy, going out into our reality in the world. Sorry. Excuse me. I'm losing my throat chakra is like, hey, yeah, leadership. I'm like, yeah, I know. Okay. I'm trying to find my voice. So anyway, we're going to be seeing that this year. And that is one expression of this energy. The other expression of this energy, because Venus, again, now Venus rules Taurus, the sign that Uranus is in. So this is significant, right? We have kind of an interplay going on, at least energetically, between these three placements, right? We have Uranus squaring the eclipse, but then we have the ruler of Taurus, Uranus's sign at the moment, Venus, and she is conjunct with the North Node. So again, we have that deconditioning of Uranus in Taurus is also impacting Venus, okay? As Venus fuses together on a conscious level in the heart space with what our soul's destiny and calling is, okay? So Venus anchoring that into the heart space, this resonates as what I want, what I love, what I'm feeling called toward and drawn by, what is going to bring me harmony, right? What I desire to have in my life that's going to bring a greater sense of peace within myself, okay? And that will manifest in the way of self-worth, okay, through those themes of Taurus. So, cultivating different habits and following your heart's desire, your path, and embodying more of that self-worth via the divine feminine. I don't have to work. I don't have to push. I don't have to hustle. I just have to be, because I am worthy of receiving just as I am. And that is fused together with the spiritual purpose, with the special calling. But it's also going to come through relationships. And this is interesting because it links in with 2027, which I've briefly mentioned, the year of the fire goat, which will be a 2 universal year numerologically, that year is going to carry an emphasis on relationships and partnerships. Okay. So we are starting to link into that energy already, right? Because again, two sides of a coin, they're not separate from each other. They're part of the same thing. And so we have Venus conjunct the North Node also showing us the path that we are being called to spiritually in terms of relationship, okay? What relationships are we meant to cultivate in order to align better with our spiritual purpose? This is a theme that we are going to see unfold throughout the rest of this year, and it becomes activated at this time through this eclipse portal. And again, this is all kinds of relationships, folks. This is the energy of Aquarius, right? We are finding our tribe, our community. We are finding people that we want to collaborate with, people that we vibe with, right? We are trying to build a better world together because we are so much stronger together than we are individually, right? Yet we each stand in our individual truth, and then together we create a beautiful symphony of unique sounds and harmonies and yeah. Oh my God. You know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about, right? So, you know, individually we carry a unique signature, but when we come together, we create something brand new, a whole different paradigm. And that's what we're doing through this eclipse. It is the birth of a new paradigm of which we are all a part and of which we are all contributing to through our authentic soul's calling and unique expression. Venus conjunct the North Node shows our path to that via the heart space, via the divine feminine, and via the attraction of new relationships and collaborations that are going to help facilitate that. Bam! I hope that makes sense. I just say bam like I'm Emerald. I mean, I am Italian, but you know. Okay. So, another significant thing going on during this eclipse, we have another personal planet, Mercury, and it is making a trine aspect to retrograde Jupiter in Cancer. This is significant because right now Mercury is in its pre shadow period. It's going to go retrograde on March 25th. Did I say March? Sorry, February 25th. It's going to go retrograde on February 25th, and it will be retrograde until March 19th. So we are in the pre-retrograde period during this eclipse. Again, that's an energy signature that's going to carry through the whole year. This is going to be a year of really inwardly examining that emotional intelligence, really like this is the fire horse year, but we're still doing a lot of deep investigative work into the psyche. Everything that we've been uncovering through Jupiter's transit of Cancer is now starting to coalesce in our cognitive mind, in our linear function of the brain, right? Like we're able to synthesize it on a conscious level, which is important because all the stuff that's represented by Cancer, the water sign, the water element, it's stuff that is unconscious. It's felt in the emotions, it's held in the psyche, it's imprinted through spirit, through past lives, through karma and ancestry. And a lot of that stuff exists within us below the radar of our perception and our conscious mind. And so we now are going to spend the next year. Mercury is retrograding only through water signs this year. We're going to spend the next year synthesizing all of that information at the intellectual level. We are going to bring it into conscious awareness so that we can understand it from our rational perspective. And that energy is imprinted here. We have this kind of trine, this flowing energy, Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, going back over things, the root system, the family system, our security, our past lives, our childhood, the emotional body and what we have been imprinted with, the psyche. It is speaking directly to Mercury, and they are having a very fluid conversation. They are vibing, they are understanding each other. And Mercury is taking in this information at this time. Now, again, it's pre retrograde. So Mercury is not able to fully understand yet, right? So, what is likely to happen? Let's talk about this on a more experiential level. What's most likely to happen during this eclipse window is that we are going to be getting a lot of synchronicities and a lot of signs and a lot of psychic information. We might be feeling things very deeply. We might be receiving telepathic communication, that kind of psychic information that comes to us that, again, is not necessarily happening here at the level of the mind, but it's coming through our intuition. So that's all happening, but we're not necessarily able to fully integrate it on that conscious level just yet. That's going to be something that happens during Mercury's retrograde cycle and post retrograde once it goes direct again in March. So, but again, this is a theme that we're going to carry throughout the rest of the year. So, throughout the rest of the year, and we're talking about a time of spiritual initiation, we are getting information. We are getting information through the body, through the emotions, through the psyche all year long. We're going to be like pulling up clues and insights and information and intuitive pangs and all kinds of things are going to be happening to us all year long. And we're going to go through this process where we begin to integrate that stuff on a conscious level. And so again, that's something that's happening here through this eclipse. We're going to be having a lot of information coming through. And the themes of Jupiter that I've talked about. So again, go watch the Jupiter retrograde and Cancer video if you want more information on that. But the themes of Jupiter and Cancer are starting to percolate in consciousness at this time. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to take a break. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding, guys. Okay, I've got lots of energy. I'm good. So, the other interesting thing happening at this time, February 14th, just a couple of days, 3 days before the eclipse, Saturn is going to change signs and it will move from Pisces to Aries. So during the eclipse, Saturn is going to be at 0 degrees of Aries. Neptune is also at 0 degrees of Aries. Now, a lot of astrologers are talking about how on the 20th, so 3 days after the eclipse, this conjunction becomes exact. That is true. Saturn and Neptune will become exactly conjunct with each other at 0 degrees of Aries on February 20th. However, we feel that energy now. We feel that energy before Saturn has even gone into Aries, right? Before February 14th. But then when it does go into Aries, we're going to feel it. And then the day of the eclipse, we're going to feel it. So don't let those specific dates fool you into thinking, well, I'm not going to feel that until this happens. No. You are definitely feeling that energy now already. And then it's just going to get further amplified when those planets come into exact conjunction, okay, on the 20th. But that is an energy that is carried through this eclipse. And again, this is a portal, this is an imprint, this is a snapshot. So Saturn and Neptune conjunct at 0 degrees. That's an energy signature that goes with us for the rest of the year. That is huge energy. It's been a very long time since these planets have been conjunct in this sign. I don't remember how many years, but hundreds of years. And it represents, because Aries is a cardinal sign, because it is the first sign of the zodiac, and because Saturn is associated with the world, we're talking about a whole new cycle for the world axis, okay? So that's us collectively as a planet, as humanity, but then that's also each of us individually. We are starting a brand new cycle. And I've talked about this a lot already, but the sign of Aries represents our special destiny through which we are called. It is the hero's journey. It is where we are beckoned to start a new adventure. And with these planets conjunct, which they don't really vibe with each other in general, just the types of energies and functions that they carry, it's a little bit tense energy. Saturn wants to crystallize, to build, and to make solid and stable, and Neptune wants to dissolve things. So those are two very, very different energies. In the end, Neptune is the outer planet, and so it will have the final say. So everything that Saturn has sought to build based on old world value systems and old ways of doing things, Neptune is saying, no, we can't do things that way anymore. We're going to dissolve the old ways of doing things. And if you try to build something the old way, if you try to go about it using the old methods, guess what? It's going to be like building a sandcastle, and then the ocean's going to come in, which is Neptune, and it's going to just sweep it all away. So Neptune is encouraging us to build things from a higher level of consciousness, and that is the only way that it's going to stick. And that consciousness has to be in alignment with that agape principle, that higher love, that unconditional love, that God perception. So that's what we're doing. So again, here's this spiritual initiation coming through, this ring of fire eclipse, right? We have a spiritual initiation with that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, 0 degrees. A brand new cycle, a brand new thing is starting, and it holds infinite potential, right? So we can start something completely brand new, and we are challenged to approach that journey, that adventure, with a totally fresh perspective. It's a new paradigm. It is a brand new paradigm. If we try to use the old tools and the old methods to build this thing, it's not going to last. It's going to crumble. But if we approach it with that heart energy, surrendering to divine will, holding faith that we are following our path, listening to our intuition, trusting where we are called, we will be shown the way and we will be in alignment. And so what we will be built on a totally different paradigm, totally different level of consciousness. That's what we are beckoned to do at this time. And again, that's an energy that is going to carry forward throughout the rest of the year. Okay, the last thing that I'm going to talk about, the last thing I'm going to talk about here is the fact that we have goddess asteroid Mary Magdalena, which is our divine feminine Christ consciousness. She sits in opposition to this eclipse in Aquarius, okay? So we again have the energies of Leo and Aquarius emphasized. That's going to be a theme that carries throughout this year, not just because of this eclipse, but because we have another eclipse later that's going to be in the sign of Leo in August during the Lion's Gate, and because we're going to have the nodes changing signs, and then various other aspects and things going on with this axis of Leo and Aquarius. So we could say, if you wanted to think of it this way, we have divine masculine energy coming through the sun. And again, we've had all these solar flares, right? Light codes, consciousness codes coming in. And then we have Mary Magdalena in Leo. Leo is the heart space, Leo is the inner child, and she is the divine feminine Christ consciousness. So we are talking about two energies that are opposing each other, and oppositions do imply relationships and mirroring. And we're talking about balancing the inner heart space with that outer masculine drive to create in the world. We're talking about the self versus the community. And these are two energies that simply need to be balanced because they are sister signs. They need each other to be in harmonious, optimal expression, to be in their light expression. So Mary Magdalena is drawing us inwardly, especially because she's retrograde at this time. She's drawing us inwardly into the heart, into the inner child, to help light our path and help us find our way forward. And then through the energy of this eclipse and through the sun, we are able to take the light of the inner child, that inner spark and that innocence and that purity and that joy, and we are able to shine it forward in a way that is innovative and in a way where we can share with the world what we have to give from a place of the heart. That's going to be a vibe, a theme that is going into this year of the Fire Horse. Again, snapshot going forward. All right. I guess I could say very last, one more thing I'll just mention. We also have Black Moon Lilith at 6 degrees of Sagittarius, and she's squaring the nodal axis, okay, the north and south nodes of the moon. And then because Venus is exactly conjunct with the north node and opposite of the south node, that means that Black Moon Lilith is squaring Venus. So, here comes those relationship themes again. Black Moon Lilith represents what we refuse to compromise on or be silenced about, okay? She is the divine feminine shadow, and Being in the sign of Sagittarius, she is really encouraging us to align with truth and freedom and expansion. And anything that limits those things for us is not going to do very well. We're going to come up against friction, against opposition. And so Venus in Pisces really wants to dive into compassion, into commitment, into unconditional love and empathy. It's all about the feelings, feeling the feels, right? And also, even being opposite of Virgo, there's a strong sense of service, being oriented towards service to others, devoting oneself to a spiritual path or commitment to some way of being useful to others. That's all well and good. And again, that's anchored in the heart space via the divine feminine, via Venus. But Black Moon Lilith is holding us accountable to our truth and our freedom and our need for exploration and expansion. So, through our relationships this year, we will be challenged to ensure that we are not sacrificing those things in the name of relationship, right? In the name of harmony. Venus can be kind of a settler. Like she will compromise her values for the sake of harmony in her shadow aspect. So Black Moon Lilith is really challenging us. And again, I said, we're going to have the rise of the divine feminine this year, right? This is part of that energy. Black Moon Lilith is challenging us that anytime we start to compromise our real values, our sense of self worth, our need for expansion, our need to experiment, to explore, and to be free and to speak our truth, right? We're going to be challenged, right? She's going to challenge us. So, any kind of relationships that you have in your life right now, or any that develop in the future that bring up these themes that start to ask you to sacrifice, that ask you to compromise in unreasonable ways, or ways that misalign you with your truth, these will come up to be confronted. And that is a theme present during the eclipse window, but then again, carried all throughout the year. All right, let's go to the tarot reading. Anyone have questions? No, I'm just kidding. You can't tell me. You can tell me in the comments if you want. All right, here's my tarot reading. Big, beautiful tarot reading. All right, so we'll just go through this. It's actually pretty simple. It's pretty quite clear, and I pretty much talked about everything that's here, which is pretty cool. So the significator card for this solar eclipse, this annular eclipse, is New Beginnings, which is represented by a beautiful sunrise. So here we have the energy of the sun again, okay? And again, we've had a lot of solar activity this week leading up to the eclipse. Who knows what's going to happen between the time I post this video and the time that it actually occurs? But we have light codes coming in. We have consciousness codes coming in. The sunrise is the symbol of a new beginning. A new chapter is starting. That is extra emphasized here, right? So we already know that because it's a solar eclipse, because it's the start of Lunar New Year, because Saturn is conjunct Neptune, all these things that are marking the fact that it's a brand new cycle. But here we have that emphasized. This is the overarching energy. Everything that goes on below that New Beginnings card falls under the umbrella of New Beginnings. That is the hallmark energy signature of this event. So it's a new beginning. It's a time of initiation. This also represents resurrection, spiritual awakening, and renewed hope. Now, if you follow alternative media, you might have heard some people talking about the closing of an old timeline, the opening of a new timeline. And the old timeline that's closing is related to kind of like doom and gloom, you could say. It's a dark timeline. We see here that is true, that old dark timeline is closing, and we have the birth of a brand new timeline, one that is aligned with light and hope and consciousness. So we are literally moving from dark to light with this event, and that is a beautiful thing, folks. That is so flippin' beautiful. So that is the hallmark energy of this event. So we've got several other cards going on. Through the oracle cards, you can't see it because they're covered up, but I had the Stargate card and the telepathy card. We have the hummingbird card, the dolphin card, and then feathered and fur friends, furry and feathered friends, whatever, animals. The animal card. So, and then, advancements and no limitations. Holy moly. This is exactly what I was talking about, especially with that Neptune-Saturn conjunction, with Uranus squaring the eclipse, with Venus conjunct the North Node. I mean, we are being beckoned forward into higher consciousness first and foremost. This whole reading is pretty much all air and earth elements for the most part, uh, especially through the tarot. It's all like pentacles and air, and we have the judgment card, which is associated with Pluto. Pluto's in Aquarius right now. We have the star card, which is Aquarius. We have the devil card, which is Capricorn. So we have just a mixture of air and earth. And again, this goes back to that Uranus and Taurus squaring the eclipse in Aquarius. So what I see coming through these cards, and again, I've kind of already talked about this, but it's a new beginning, a new chapter, a new timeline, a timeline that is brighter, something that brings renewed hope. We see that through the star card, okay? That is the energy of Aquarius. That is the new paradigm, okay? We also see this shift in consciousness. Okay, so the hummingbird card is very much related to 5D consciousness, but also I love this card because if you look at it closely, and maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. Again, it's a lot smaller on my screen. But we have kind of this dark gray forest in the background, and we have an archway, kind of like a doorway, right? Like a gateway. And then we have this hummingbird that has found this beautiful honeysuckle nectar, and it's bright colored, and there's even like pollen coming off of it that looks like gold. Oh my gosh, you guys. This absolutely represents the energy going into this eclipse. It's like no matter what's going on around you or what appears to be happening in the background, your focus is on the nectar, the sweetness, the gold, the nourishment, what you want to see, the color that you want to see. That is absolutely the energy of this eclipse. It's about changing our perspective so that we can herald in, so that we can cultivate and create something brand new. It's about realizing the potential that we all hold. Not just potential, but the ability that we all have to create this in our own unique way. We know this. We know this. You guys, we know this. But it's like those old paradigms have kept us stuck. They've kept us trapped. Okay, we see this in the bottom cards. We have the Four of Pentacles next to the Devil card. The Devil card, as Capricorn energy, represents the old traditions, the old structures, the hierarchies, the rules, the societal foundations that have been built, the paradigms that have been created in the past that we have been held under. The Four of Pentacles, we've been stuck, rigid, blocked, trapped. And this particularly relates to scarcity consciousness, okay? This is like, and scarcity is a lot of things, right? Absolutely, it is finances, it is money, it is resources, it is security and survival. But it's other things too, like time and love and self-care, health, relationships, all these things, right? There's been this like dearth that we've been operating under, right? That's been like the code or the vibration, the frequency that we've all been kind of resonating with for so long. And I'm talking as a collective. You might individually have shifted out of this a while ago, but collectively, that's been the tone, one of scarcity. You have to do things this way. If you don't do it this way, XYZ, this is going to happen. And it's always compromise, right? And it's always sacrificing what you really want, who you truly are, so that you can be in service to the paradigm, so that you can be an upstanding member of society, so that you don't die, so that you don't lose out, so that you don't have this. It's all built on scarcity, right? That's the old paradigm. But what we have with this eclipse is something brand new, being born through that star card, which represents renewed hope. Again, there's that hope and healing, and also wishes coming true. We also see next to this beautiful figure who is that Aquarian archetype, right? The water. We see a cat, and it's looking at a fish in the water. Okay, fish are abundance. We see the cat is focusing on the fish. So it's like we are changing our focus. We are learning how to change our focus. We are advancing in our consciousness to perceive what is really real, which is no limitations. There are no limitations to what you can create. And that is what we are waking up to. We have the Judgment card next to the Four of Swords. Okay, now the Four of Swords can sometimes have to do with rest and recuperation. But in this particular card, we have this witch, and she's sleeping, and she's surrounded by cobwebs. And it's like we've been asleep. We've been asleep, and things have been sort of like decaying and growing old and dusty around us while we've been sleeping. And now Judgment comes in, playing its song, Pluto, awakening, right? Transformation, change. And we are awakening. We are being woken up. We are being rebirthed through that energy of Pluto. And again, Pluto is in Aquarius right now. So its energy, even though it's not directly aspecting this eclipse, its energy is prominent. It's a player. It's a player in this event, okay? So we have this awakening happening within us, all right? We have the Ace of Swords and the Three of Swords, all right? The Three of Swords is pain and heartbreak and loss and sorrow and grief, but all of those emotions are tied to our mind because it's the Swords card. So it's like our perceptions and our thought patterns and the way that we've looked at things in the past have kept us stuck in these old, dense, low vibration feelings, right? Right? And our feelings are a big part of what helps us to manifest. So it's like the vibe we've been carrying has been in this low frequency, and we've been stuck in it. We've been trapped in it. That's that devil energy, right? Like we've been tied to it. We have the ability to free ourselves, but we haven't been ready yet because our consciousness, especially on a collective level, hasn't shifted to that point yet. But this is the shift. This time that we are in right now is the shift. That's the Ace of Swords. This is the breakthrough. Okay? This is success. This is victory. This is cutting away all the things from the past that have kept us tied down in that lower frequency, in that sorrow, in that heartbreak. And we are breaking through now. Okay? And now we have the Page of Pentacles. We have a new path opening up, grounded into reality. Remember, I talked about Uranus squaring the eclipse. How are you going to take your ideas and the new paradigms and the passion, and how are you going to ground it into reality? Vice versa. How are you going to take your physical manifestations and marry them to the innovations of Aquarius? That is this Page of Pentacles here. He's standing on a road, and there's multiple paths. He could go any direction, and he's flipping a coin to see which way he's going to go. And the cat in the card is focused on the money, right? So again, and I kind of think of that as like our higher self or our instinct or, our guidance system showing us like you will be financially supported when you make the shift, when you open up the path, when you don't feel stuck anymore, like you're being forced down a specific trench that was pre-established for you, right? By some other old system that you had nothing to do with apart from being born into it. When you break away from that, you will find that there is physical financial support for you. That's when abundance comes in. The more that you align with your unique frequency, with your authenticity, with what feels true to you, with your heart's resonance, with your inner child, with what brings you joy, you will attract everything that you need because that is the alignment of your soul calling you. That's Venus conjunct the North Node, right? And again, Venus attraction. When we are aligned with our soul's purpose and our spiritual calling, we will naturally attract all that we need to sustain us. Not just to sustain us, but to help us flourish and thrive. And that is what is going into this eclipse. This is the energy. This is the imprint. This is the snapshot going forward for the rest of this year. Mic drop. Pen drop. Oh my God, I just scared my dog. Okay, so sorry. She's taking a nap and I dropped my pen. Okay. So let's go back here. I know I'm getting really passionate. So this is really interesting, right? And I wanted to point out, I was watching one of Stefan Burns's videos this morning. And again, check him out if you were interested in the sciencey stuff behind, solar activity and the Schumann resonance and all that cool stuff, okay, that I can't explain very well. One of the things he was talking about is how the electricity of the earth is increasing. The amplitude and the frequency of the electricity around the earth in the ionosphere, what's happening between the ionosphere and the physical plane, and how this affects consciousness, right? And he was talking about this, again, that influences the Schumann resonance. When we have literal thunderstorms, right, and we have lightning strikes, that actually spikes the Schumann resonance. And the Schumann resonance is operating at the same level as our brain waves, as our human consciousness. So there's a connection here, right, between electricity and what's going on in the Earth's atmosphere and what we're receiving from the sun and what we are experiencing at the level of consciousness as individuals, as a collective humanity. And I find that really interesting because Uranus is associated with electricity and with lightning. And in the tarot, I associate Uranus with the Tower card. Traditionally, it's Mars, but I always think of Uranus as being the lightning that strikes the tower and causes everything to crumble. Uranus is also the Fool in the tarot, which is really interesting to think about because the Fool is completely uninhibited and free and able to follow his own path or her own path, right? And the Fool is just kind of following the whims of intuition and where he's being called, kind of that Don Quixote archetype. So I find this interesting because, again, we have that Saturn-Neptune conjunction going on during this eclipse. And again, I'm talking about breaking free of paradigms. And the tarot reading is talking about advancement and no limitations. This event really is marking a time in which we experience a huge shift in consciousness. We might not notice it directly, immediately. Maybe we will. I don't know. Depends on you and what's going on in your world and what you're paying attention to. But I do think that this is a significant shift, this time, this portal for human consciousness, because we are shifting from the old paradigm to the new. Okay. And the new has not been written yet, right? We are writing it right now, each and every one of us. And that's kind of the beautiful thing. Might be a little bit of the scary thing, depending on how you look at it, but it's also the beautiful thing because you are an active participant in writing the new paradigm. The way that you perceive reality is contributing to the new paradigm. And the way you perceive reality is tied directly into how you perceive yourself and how you relate to yourself. And that is what this year is all about because it is a one universal year. It is about being initiated into spiritual leadership, which means you become the leader of your own life. And it's about becoming individualized, right? This is where we really find our individual calling this year. We have to experience that inner union with the self, that individuation, before we can really unionize with other people, before we can really harmonize and come into union with others. And I've talked about this in other videos. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have relationships this year or, that relationships are going to suffer or anything like that. It's just that there's an emphasis on coming into the union with the self so that we can start to build our relationships better and stronger next year because your self is the foundation, right? And you have to build up the self and come into alignment with your values and recognize your self-worth and heal and integrate and calm your nervous system, right? These are all themes that are going into the energy of the fire horse. Cultivating emotional intelligence, understanding your roots, recognizing the treasure that you hold within, heeding the call to adventure, following your soul's purpose, your destiny, rewriting the story, completely reconstructing the paradigm, right? That's what we are doing. We do it on an individual level, and then the individual level feeds into the collective paradigm. So, this is a really exciting time. And I know I've been overhyping it. I don't really care. I don't think it's overhyping, to be honest. I think that this is a very significant time that we are in. And I think that we are going to see massive changes unfold. These changes are going to happen on an individual level, but they will echo out into the collective as well. So think about, where do you want to put your energy, and really think about, where are you stuck, trapped, or limited in your thinking or just in your life? Because now is the time to break free from those limitations. Now is the time to unstick yourself from all the old traps. Because honestly, at this point, they're just illusions. They're just illusions of the past that are trying to hold you in an old timeline. But that timeline is dissolving. It's not here anymore. Especially once Saturn moves into Aries, that old crappy dark timeline is not going to hold anymore, okay? And anything that resembles it is just an echo. It's just a shadow of the old, and it's just an illusion that's trying to pull us back in, because our consciousness is what creates timelines. And so how we focus our consciousness is what we create. So don't let the old stuff ensnare your consciousness. Let yourself be drawn by the pull of what you love, right? Isn't that a Rumi quote? And what you seek is seeking you. All those beautiful ideas. It's so true. Your soul is calling you towards something beautiful and expansive and aligned, and something that is meant just for you. And whatever you do, and the more you follow your joy, the more that you follow that call, the more that you help to create a brand new earth and a brand new paradigm that benefits everybody. All right, folks. This was my video on the solar eclipse in Aquarius, coming up again on February 17th. I hope that it is a beautiful event. Don't forget to set intentions on this day, because it is still a new moon. And I hope that it is just such fresh energy and inspiring and just beautiful for you all. Please remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you haven't already. If you're interested in a personal reading, if you want to see how this energy is going to impact you individually via your natal chart, I do readings. You can check that out at zenithglowastrology.com. Otherwise, I want to say thank you so much for being here. I love you all, and happy Lunar New Year. Bye.